Here we go. Let's rock and roll. This is the Global Bob Show, episode number 19. We are the crossroads of technology and politics. Scratch that. We're the epicenter of technology and politics. Got a real nice show in store for you this week. We're going to be talking about the evolution of home entertainment and the various nuances around that and some of the legal things around home entertainment. And really enjoyed putting this show together. This is Global Bob, your field commander. And everyone that tunes into the show each week, thank you so much. I'm here in the wonderful Richard Cook broadcast facility, and each week I continue to make little tweaks and I make a few little changes to it, and I have a real nice little setup here for doing my podcast. Now, you know you can always reach out to Global Bob if you got a quick question, and just last week I had a long-time friend, a long-time listener, and he reached out to me because he has a client that has fallen victim to ransomware. Now, of course, it was the typical conversation. Hey, Field Commander Bob, you got a buddy of mine, got a client of mine, and they have ransomware on their computer, and they are 100% locked out. Can you crack it open and get the files back? And I always have to let the caller down or the person inquiring about ransomware recovery, and I tell them it's just one of those things. No, I cannot crack the code, and no, there's probably no way to get it back cheaply. So this is a good public service announcement where you need to make sure that you have good backups of your critical data. And so I broke the news to them and told them that about the best thing you can do is restore from a backup. And I can tell you right now, I don't think I've ever had one person tell me, oh, well, that's cool, we got backups. No, usually what it is that they say they have all their information backed up to the cloud. Well, depending on how your settings are, even though you back up to the cloud, those files can still be encrypted. So what you have to do is do what I call incremental backups, which means you probably want to back up your computer once a day and store that, and then keep a week. So you got, 7 days, and then once a month. So therefore you can kind of roll back. But that's the only real defense against this these guys and girls and people that are trying to scam you out of money by holding your files ransom. So public service announcement from your Field Commander Global Bob. Please back up your data and keep a couple different variations of that backup. So I'd like to thank everybody that tunes in every week, of course. And you can find Global Bob out on the Facebook page by searching Global Bob Show. You can hit me on Twitter at Global Bob Show and Gmail at Global Bob Show. Moving right along. Speaking of moving right along, got one more tidbit to share with you. So I always say that we are cruising the highways and the byways of cyberspace. Well, I did have a conversation with somebody, and they said, Commander Bob, you talk about cruising the highways and byways of cyberspace. Well, what do you cruise in? And without skipping a beat, I said, I cruise in a 1967 Cadillac DeVille, 18 foot, 6 inches from nose to tail, 2-door, baby blue, white convertible top. It just so happens that Global Bob here used to have a 1967 Cadillac DeVille. So what I like about radio is that we can use our imagination. So when you are tuned into the show and I say we're cruising the highways and byways, just know that we got the top let back on the 67 DeVille. got our little dancing hula doll on the dash and the dice hanging from the rear view mirror. So let's get into the topic du jour. So today I want to talk to you about home entertainment and mainly time shifting of shows and movies. Now, for some that don't know exactly what time shifting is, it's basically a legal way for you to record various content. Now, here's a little disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Please do not go out and do this stuff and say, "Whoa, Commander Bob told me I can do it." No. Do your own research. But for all intent and purposes, everything that I'm talking about is completely legal from my interpretation. So what is time shifting? Well, just what we talked about. It is a way to record something that is live or something that you have, and you can then view it later. So to be able to record things did not come into existence or available to the average person into the mid to late 70s. Now, we all know that we've had the 8mm films and the 16mm films back in the day. But that type of technology was usually reserved for, people that were really, really well off. These days, you show off your fancy cars, but back then, people had screening rooms. And the film would be one of those reel-to-reel, and sometimes it would not even have sound to it. But coming into the 70s, we could get technology, and it would be available to, some people that could afford it. So you didn't really have to be super mega rich. And what would happen is that if you missed a movie in the theater, or if you saw it on television, you didn't get to see it until it aired again. And I can tell you that just listening to some stories that my dad told, that there would be shows, and he would rush home, and people would rush home and get in front of the TV. And if you were running 5 minutes late, you missed 5 minutes of that show. And the technology wasn't there yet until about the mid-70s, where you could actually record that. So how did we get this technology? Now, the major milestone that happened was when a Japanese company named Sony released a system called Betamax. Now, that was way before my time. I don't remember the Betamax. Of course, I do remember the VHS. But that was released May 10th, 1975. And the way that the Betamax worked is that it used a magnetic tape, and people could record to that magnetic tape. And this was an analog technology, so nothing digital yet. And the way that Betamax got its name is that the pattern that the tape would make, the magnetic tape inside the cassette would make, it looked like the Greek letter for beta. So they called it beta, and I guess they threw max on there. So the movie industry's kind of really miscalculated the market here. They thought that the only play for this technology would be to rent movies. They didn't think that people would want to record their own stuff off the air. And so they kind of missed the boat on that. But people quickly wanted to keep the movies to watch multiple times. And this is real common, right? I mean, you'll be watching something on, say, Netflix, or you rent a DVD. You start to watch it and you say, "Oh, wait, I'd like to watch it with somebody else." Well, with the Betamax technology, this was the first time that you could actually record something and watch it over and over again. And one of the things that came up is that, as you know, when new things hit the market, here comes other people that want a piece of that market. So next enters a company called JVC. And JVC are the ones that invented the VHS tape. And the VHS tape and Betamax were two competing technologies. Maybe some of you all that are a little older than me maybe remember those wars back and forth. But JVC is another Japanese company, and it stands for Victor Company Japan. And Betamax and them were going back and forth. But what made the VHS a more quality product is that it had longer recording time. The Betamax didn't have that. And so Betamax was first to the market, but they lost share very quickly. And they lost the share because of the war going back and forth. And, you know, when new technologies come out, there's always a war that happens back and forth, which is better. And we'll see the same thing as we go through the evolution of home entertainment. I mean, AM had, you know, a competitor of FM. Even when electricity came out, DC was the first electricity that came out. And there were some power companies that would supply you DC voltage and some that would supply AC voltage. And as we know, it quickly became the standard of AC, which we may talk about that in a later episode of why that became. But, you know, you had IBM compatible computers and you had Apple. But you see, there's a kind of a theme here. It seems like the ones that have the proprietary technology that they want to keep close hold on, like Apple did back in the day, then they seem to not win these wars, right? Because we know the IBM compatible computer ultimately won out for market share. But the main thing that it came down to for consumers is that they wanted to record stuff. They wanted a time shift. And one of the downfalls of Betamax, where people would argue back and forth that Betamax had a superior quality, but we're talking about, you know, analog back in the 70s. So it's not going to be that much difference. But the main thing was that for all intent and purposes, basically, Betamax was only good for 60 minutes of recording time. And VHS had 120 minutes of recording time. Now, throughout this podcast, you're going to kind of hear a theme back and forth, right? One person or company comes up with a technology, then a competitor comes and the two technologies kind of battle it back and forth, and then one reigns superior. Now, back to the VHS and the Betamax. While they were invented in Japan and Asia Pacific is where it all started, everyone knows that at that time that the American market was where the battle would be waged. And so they all wanted to dominate the American market. And one of the key battles to winning this war of who was going to dominate the market between Betamax and VHS was they were racing to get longer record time. And one of the main benchmarks that both companies were trying to hit was to produce a tape that could record for 4 hours. And whenever I was doing my research into this, I was having to look. I was like, why is 4 hours the key to winning this war? And it's pretty straightforward. The American football game. So I know I have some international listeners here. I see the statistics of the people that stream the show. So the American football game lasts 4 hours. I would assume that maybe the European soccer game wasn't or not quite as long. You know, they call that football also. But when they were trying to get to this 4 hour mark, one of the ways they could do it was to run the tape slower. And by doing that, they could get the length up higher, but the quality was lower. And it's just like any technology, right? You don't get cheap and fast. And in this case, you don't get long recording times and high quality. We all know that the VHS tape won out because that's what kind of became the standard. Like I said, whenever I grew up in the 80s, I never saw a Betamax. It was always VHS. And one of the reasons why that they won out is because they partnered up with companies like Zenith and Quasar. Now, I don't know if they're even in business anymore, but I know that my dad at our house, we used to have a Zenith, and it had the words Zenith Superset on it. That was kind of cool. I remember that. But Sony wanted to have complete control of the system, and VHS was, open to other companies using them. Now, this is a technology, whenever I was researching, so we had the tape technology, which we know that carried us for quite some time into the 90s. But I also do remember Laserdisc. And Laserdisc from the 80s was actually it was the birthplace of the modern DVD and probably the CD as well. And I remember that my uncle had a Laserdisc, and we went and rented one, and all I remember was that it was a big platter, a lot larger. It was almost like the size of an old record. And so I thought, all these years that it kind of went VHS, Betamax, and into the Laserdisc. Well, VHS and Betamax did come first, but the Laserdisc was right there with it, believe it or not. But the adoption was slow, and it never really became a real threat for a variety of reasons. One of the ones is that they were racing to this longer recording time, right? They wanted to hit 4 hours. A Laserdisc, depending on the quality, it was only 30 minutes to an hour. And so if you had a movie like Titanic, which is 3 hours and 14 minutes long, well, if you wanted that in high quality, then you would have to watch 30 minutes, flip it over, watch the next 30 minutes. That got you the first hour. And you see where I'm going with this. So Titanic, if we would have kept the Laserdisc technology, it would have taken 4 discs, right? 3 hours, 3 discs, 30 minutes each side gets us to there. And then the other 14 minutes, we'd have to have another Laserdisc. Moreover, those Laserdiscs weighed about a half a pound. So you can see that about 6.5 pounds of disc would get you the movie Titanic. Now, here's an interesting little fun fact. Actually, I got a couple about Laserdisc whenever I was doing my research. I didn't realize that the last Laserdisc player, and I guess the disc also, the last one was around 2006, 2008-ish time frame, I think. And I thought that Laserdisc would be long gone, especially with the introduction of the DVD and stuff. So yeah, I was just kind of flabbergasted. Like, wait, they still manufacture these things into the early 2000s? But the first movie that was released on the Laserdisc was actually Jaws in 1978. So if you're ever on Jeopardy and they ask what was the first Laserdisc movie that was released, it would have been Jaws in 1978. So a couple things. Laserdisc, people cannot record the Laserdisc, make copies of it. And like I said, really what we're talking about here is the time shifting. And with VHS, you can do that. Betamax, you can do that. So Laserdisc really never got any traction. But the one thing that we did get from the Laserdisc is that it was the first time that we could get these special features that we're all so used to now. If I'm streaming Netflix and I want to hear it in Spanish or French, I just flip through it. Well, with VHS and Betamax, you couldn't do that, but with Laserdisc, you could. Also, one of the benefits of the Laserdisc, and I'm saying Laserdisc now, I'm talking about disc technology, right? But Laserdisc did set that. But one of the things was to be able to skip. And you didn't have to rewind a Laserdisc. And so I think that the Laserdisc technology, as we know, eventually did become DVD. And we have more wars there that erupted between Blu-ray and HD DVD. But that really was kind of the foundation for how we consume movies today. So the Laserdisc was out there. However, not a lot of traction. But what really kind of propelled the VHS tape, believe it or not, was in the 80s, the home workout. When you would watch movies and they would cut to commercial, especially late at night, they would have, I remember Jane Fonda, I think it was, or somebody on there, and Richard Simmons, and old Richard, you could buy his VHS tape to sweat into the oldies. And everybody started getting a little more health conscious, right? The 80s, that's when we got people that are, I guess the term of it is yuppies or city folks. So they're the ones that are wanting to look good. And so they were the ones that would buy these VHS tapes and the VHS players so they could get their home workout in. But now we are going to move into an area in 1995 where the DVD came out. And the DVD, and that is a format, it was developed by Philips, Toshiba, Panasonic, and Sony. So it was a conglomeration of companies that came together in 1995 and released the DVD. Now, the DVD had some really neat stuff with it. One, it was a very, very small form factor. And it was, like a CD that we were used to, because in the music industry, remember, CDs were coming along. So for, basically all intent and purposes, it was a same shape and size as a CD. So highly portable. And they could last longer than tapes. And so they kind of fixed the problem with the Laserdisc, big, clunky, heavy, 30 to 60 minutes per side. With this, the DVD would last a lot longer. Also, they were a lot cheaper to produce. The average Laserdisc, now this isn't adjusted for inflation, so the price is higher now, but the average Laserdisc was like $100, and a DVD was only $20. And so I remember some of the first DVD players that came out. They had Generation 1, Generation 2, and Generation 3. And whenever you would go over to a friend's house, they would ask, oh, well, what generation DVD player do you have? And one of the things I remember is that if the DVD player could play the movie Twister, the blockbuster movie that came out, then it was a Gen 3 DVD player. Nowadays, you don't even ask. I mean, the DVD player is to play anything, and of course now we're into the Blu-ray. But what came to be is that the TVs were starting to become high definition. And so with high definition, you need high definition media. And then we have the Blu-ray and HD DVD. They battled it out, kind of the same theme, and we all know who won on that. And it was the Blu-ray. And at the same time that the DVD market was exploding, here come Netflix. And before Netflix, you would have to go rent a DVD and then take it back to the store and then get another DVD. You're driving back and forth. But with Netflix, they would deliver the DVD directly to your house, and you could watch it, send it back, and they would send you another one. Now remember, what people really had a thirst for is to watch content at their leisure. And at the same time that Netflix was becoming popular, what some people would do would order the DVDs, and then they would use programs to rip that DVD, and they would copy it to another DVD or keep it inside their digital library and send them back. And so what that would allow people to do was to get as many movies as possible, build up a media library at their house, and they could watch the movie over and over without having to, keep re-renting the movie. Now, this is where we got the legal stuff starting to get in, and to me, I feel like that's not exactly legal to do that, and I'm sure that some people in the motion picture industry would agree with me. And we then go from the DVD being all the rage in Netflix to now the streaming services. And when streaming services comes out, now you didn't have to wait for the DVD. You did not need to drive to the video store like Blockbuster and get your DVD and drive back and forth and stuff. You could just instantly stream thousands and thousands of movies. I know the first stream that I ever did was Netflix. And I had an Xbox when Microsoft came out. I think it was the Xbox 360. And it had an application that was directly for Netflix. And I was amazed. I plugged it in, and my little brother told me about this Netflix streaming. I downloaded it, and I thought it was the most amazing technology. Now, when you watch the stream on Netflix, one of the things that is really frustrating is that you want to go back and watch that stream or movie again, and it's just not available. So people figured out how to time shift or rip those streams. Now, fast forward to this month. I'm not really too much of a movie person, even though I'm doing a podcast on home entertainment. I mean, I'll watch the blockbusters that come out, and I'll, if it's something that's interesting. But my wife, she loves movies. I swear, we probably have one of the largest DVD collections you have ever seen. And one of the problems with her movie collection is that, once again, you have to remember the movies that you have. You need to get up, go looking for the DVD. Maybe it's in the living room, maybe it's in the bedroom. And so she wanted to get our library online at our house. And she found a technology and asked me to look into it. And I started to uncover all the different nuances around standing up a home media server. And the geek in me, who really doesn't watch a lot of movies, really got fascinated by this. Because if you think about where we came and where we're going and where we're at now, it's just amazing, right? I mean, we have clunky VHS tapes and Betamax all the way up to DVDs. Now, you can take your whole DVD catalog and library and put it on a server at your house, and you can just search it, and you have it's almost like a Netflix or any of the other streaming services, but it's at your house. And so I started this out on Friday to build her this streaming server at our house. And I would say within about 6 hours, there was some, little nuances with the setup. I had that aha moment that I've had only a few times in technology, like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. So you can take the movies and put them inside of your DVD player, and it will record it to the local hard drive. And not only does it record it to the local hard drive, but it also has the description, and it's got the cover art on there, like the outside of the DVD. All of this stuff just kind of happens auto-magically. That's what I like to say sometimes. And whenever I looked into it a little further, now this is something that I'm not going into yet, but there's these various modules that will allow you to time shift live television. And so you can set it up, and if you have a tuner for the outside antenna, and you want to watch a show, let's say American Idol, well, now with this modern technology, you can just schedule it, and it will put it on your home server, and you can watch it whenever. The other thing I find very interesting in this technology is because the content is stored locally at your house, if your internet were to go out, you can still have access to streaming because it's all streaming locally. And when you think about the power of that, this is where the political, legal stuff starts to come in. Now, doing some research, I found out that when you purchase a DVD or you subscribe to a streaming service, you're actually being licensed for that viewing, right? So if I go down to my local store, whether it's Walmart or Target, and I buy a DVD, now that DVD is encased in a plastic wrapper. When you cut that wrapper, you are legally bound to the license of that DVD. And whenever I looked at it, because I want to make sure I don't do anything illegal, from what I can tell is that anything that you buy, you're allowed to make a copy of it as long as you don't distribute the copy of it. And the distribution isn't just uploading it to the internet. And for God's sakes, guys, please do not go get a Fire Stick or one of these Kodi servers they advertise online and say that you get to watch first-run movies without having to go to the movie theater. I mean, come on, let's use some common sense here. We know that if you get to watch something that's still in the movie theaters for free, it's illegal. If you take your home DVD collection, like what we're in the process of doing, and putting it all on our little local hard drive, now that is for our own viewing pleasure at our house. Do not send that to grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncle, and don't give other people access to it. You will get caught. I know that ISPs get what they call DCMA complaints all the time, and that's where someone is torrenting movies. And I do get people that call me from time to time and say, hey, Commander Bob, I got this box, and they say all I do is plug it in, and I can watch movies that are still in the movie theaters. Well, those are pirated movies. Today, we're cruising the highways and byways. We're not on the pirate ship selling the digital ocean. So make sure, just like with any technology that becomes easy for people to do, you don't kind of say, well, it's just a copy of it, and I'm just going to let my mom watch it. Because if that proliferates out on the internet, these artists and movie houses, they need to make money. And so if you want to show a movie at your bar or a public venue, well, you need a different license for that. You can't just go down to Walmart and get a DVD and start showing that DVD. So please, this comes up a lot of times that people think digital stuff is not as bad, but it's the same thing as stealing. Even the music you hear in the Global Bob Show, I license that music. There's a website I use, and I go out and I download it and I put in my information, and so they know that I'm using it for my podcast. So you got to have the right license. But let's get back to how amazing is that? We had to carry around all these VHS tapes, or we had to have these laser discs and even the small DVD. But now you can put all of these movies that you are legally entitled to on your iPhone or iPad, and you can just have hundreds and hundreds of it. And I just think that's amazing of where we went from only the mega rich back in the day looking at these 8mm and going into Betamax and people trying to do the time shifting to now you can have all your shows, all of your movies and content right in the palm of your hand. All right, I know that we're at the bottom of the half hour, and I hope you enjoyed this little walk down memory lane as always. Maybe it sparked a few memories of your childhood, maybe a few memories of you recording different content and knowing that you could have your buddies come over and you could watch a scary movie on a Friday night and not have to be there at the exact time of when the movie starts. So with that, we will see everybody next week. And thank you, as always, for tuning in to the Global Bob Show. Till next time.